Hello, friends. We celebrate the feast day of St. Charles Borromeo, November 4th. And in his life, we discover, a truth that our modern world desperately really needs to hear, that, sanctity is not an escape from reality, but a complete immersion into it. When, with Christ as our guide, we can become saintly in the ordinary. Charles Borromeo was born in 1530s he was born into wealth and privilege, and he could have easily sought comfortable life. There are some people who seek comfort, some people who are pleasure lovers, and Charles Borromeo was born into such wealth that he could have lived that, kind of like Francis of Assisi as well. Young Charles had everything. He had wealth. He had a position. He even had a cardinal's head at 23. So he was a person of power. One would say that he was very successful at a young age. He was brilliant. Charles Borromeo understood something, though, that success has nothing to do with it. We're not called to be successful. We're called to be faithful. And so, there was a plague that struck in Milan during that time, around 1570s. While others fled, normally they fled, everybody fled. 1 in 3 persons died during, I believe that was I'm not sure if it was the Black Death or not, but there was a plague. Well, he stayed, and Charles Borromeo, he even, sold church items and like vessels and items of wealth that were valuable. He sold for the poor. He was quoted saying that a shepherd does not abandon his sheep. And so he sold those treasures not to hoard or to build up things for himself, but he sold them to feed the poor and to take care of the dying and the hungry. He would walk the streets that was just littered with the death, and he would walk them bringing the Eucharist. So imagine the slums of New York, and there's just every 30 persons is dying from a plague. If this is the Black Plague, I can't remember my history at this time, but whatever it was, he brought the Eucharist to them. And he was a man of great love and sacrifice, absolute faith, no fear, and he knew the measure of that love in the Eucharist was worth giving to the poor and the destitute and those who were dying. His heroism, you could even say, during the plague was not it was not really spontaneous. It wasn't just like fleeting here and there. It flowed throughout many years of his life. He did this regularly, and so through his prayers, he fasted. He had a discipline of a simple life, kind of like John Vianney, and so he was a saint that was in the chapel, and he was revealed in the streets. That's what they say. Saints are made in chapels, and then they're revealed in the streets. I think that's the quote. Charles reformed his entire diocese, visiting every parish, establishing seminaries. Pretty good guy. He was well involved with everything. He understood what, this was during the Council of Trent too. So implementing those things and the Council of Trent, kind of like our version of Vatican II. That's our main council that we're still digesting and living out. Charles Borromeo was living out the Council of Trent and all of those things, that reform that was going on throughout entire Europe. Today we kind of face our own plagues, there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of there's moral relativism, there's an epidemic of all kinds of evils in the world. People not worshiping God anymore. They're worshiping themselves, especially through the occult. St. Charles asks, I think it was quoted, will you flee or will you remain? Will you seek comfort or will you embrace the cross? Yeah. Will you flee or will you remain? I'm going to stay. When I get grumpy about my life, I just remember it's the cross. And I take a big deep breath and I let it out and surrender and remember these words. Am I going to run away from this or am I going to carry it? Because Christ really is the one carrying it. Well, I'm not going to seek comfort. I'm not going to seek, anything but Christ crucified. In my discipleship, especially in the gospel the other day, take up your cross and follow me, Jesus says. And so Charles Borromeo in the 16th century, born into privilege, could have done all kinds of things. He could have been a wealthy aristocrat, but he chose Christ crucified, the Gospels. He chose the people in the streets. He chose life of the cross, discipleship. So true nobility, my friends, is not found in privilege. It's in service. True wealth is not in possessions, but in giving of the self. And so true life is found only in the dying of ourselves. And that's a good lesson to remember when you feel like you're dying because of suffering in any way. Just remember that that's how your true life is coming about. It's painful, yes, but Charles Borromeo did it. So did a lot of the saints. It reminds me of, a lot of them. Teresa of Calcutta, Francis, Saint Peter Frassati, Giorgio Pierre. He did the same thing. That's how he caught polio. He spent his time in the streets taking care of people, giving to people. We all can do something. We can pray and we can give to different causes, churches. There's all kinds of nonprofits and ways to give to people in need, especially overseas. Catholic Relief Services is a good example. Mary's Meals is another example if you want to get connected with food program, directly helping children go to school. But pray to St. Charles Borromeo for inspiration to live the life of servitude and not seeking pleasures or life of comfort. Live a life of service. Live a life of giving and charity. Complete abandonment to divine providence. And if you do that, you just might become a saint.